Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Stool podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. This is episode number 18. My name is Robin Lewis from robinlewismakes.com. I'm joined by Joey Chalk from King Post Timberworks.
Hello.
And Jordan Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio.
Hello.
We live stream the recording on YouTube every Thursday evening at 6 p.m., although we've got one more week of Monday at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time or UTC plus 10, or you can watch or listen to it later on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll get to your comments towards the end of the show, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves. The idea being that this is also a place to meet. I see we've got a few people in already. So just a couple of announcements from my side. First off, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, Joey, we talked about I was going to post one of your videos on Reddit and see if there was any bumps. So I ended up putting that up after last week's show, last week, Monday.
Okay.
Have you noticed was there any change, like the type of comments, any extra views or any shift that you noticed?
On Instagram?
No, well, it would have been on YouTube. So I put your YouTube video I did the Buddhist altar and the modern circular table.
Yeah, well, there has been a bunch more comments, I suppose, on those videos.
Yeah. Did you notice any jump in your views? I mean, I don't know if that's something that you paid attention, because I had a quick look myself to check your subscribers and views, and I didn't notice anything drastic. But on the actual Reddit post, I can see that there's been a lot of activity.
Okay.
So it's interesting you say there's been a couple of extra comments, but I unfortunately, I didn't get the impression that it was that big spike that I was expecting it to be. So it kind of, I shot my theory down.
There's no massive spike in anything this week.
Right.
On the Reddit subject, I posted a video to Reddit. I can't remember which one, just because of what you said to me about how it's a good way to kind of get additional people looking at it. And it got taken down because it was considered self-promotion.
What?
I'm like, this entire thing is about posting artisan woodworking videos or I can't remember what group I put it in.
Yeah.
And it got to like 60, is it up rates or something they call it on Reddit?
Upvotes, yeah. 60 is not too bad.
It got to 60 and then it got pulled because it was like me self-promoting. I have no idea. And then I posted it in a different thing and the same bloody thing happened. So I'm like, I'm not here saying buy this because it's amazing. I just said I made a table. This is it. I've got a cool workshop. Watch it. And
Reddit can be very.
So I gave up on the whole Reddit thing because it was too hard.
It can be super, like, you might just get on a bad day. You get what's called moderators, and they manage the subreddits.
Right.
So you might have just caught the guy on a bad day and he was like, I'm tired of dealing with this. This is the 10th guy that I've had to deal with.
True. It's a real person on the other end, I guess. It's not a bot. So
yeah, exactly.
So how do you view stuff on Reddit? Is it like how do you rate it? Is it done by views, or is there like a way to see if something is successful? I have no idea. So
you go onto the front page of Reddit and you can see everything that people are posting. You can then go in and dial into specific subreddits, like a woodworking subreddit or something like that. And based on the number of up or down votes, so if it gets upvoted, then it generally moves higher up the list. Right. If it gets downvoted, then it disappears very quickly. So depending on, and that's why the fact that you got 60 upvotes, it's actually pretty good, John. Well, I mean, it's not amazing, but it's definitely not bad. I mean,
and that's what I thought. Like, it was 60 upvotes I posted it before I went to bed. In the morning, I checked it, and it was 60, but it was also removed. So, like, it obviously got upvoted pretty quickly because people liked it, but still, the moderators removed it because it was self-promotion.
So, do you know, Rob, what my videos are doing after a week? After being downvoted.
I can speak right now. What I'll do, did you guys have any other announcements while we're on that?
Announcements?
Like anything going on that you want to particularly make?
Wormy, my amputated finger, has a very small nail growing out of one of its holes. So that's interesting.
So
that's
a
cool
nail.
announcement. Yeah, like it's tiny. It's not even a millimeter across.
And so
and it hurts.
I was just going to say, could you just like rip it off? But no, it's like...
Yeah, so that's an announcement that's kind of cool.
That sounds awful.
And we've just lost all of our viewership. All right, cool.
Wormy. Jeez.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I'll do is I'll quickly have a look at that
Okay.
and find that thing on the side. In the meantime, Joey, what have you been working on this week?
Been flat out on this kitchen islands. Excuse me. On this kitchen island made of kauri. It's Fijian/Malaysian kauri, because the New Zealand stuff is not really possible. And I put, for the first time, I've used the undermount drawer runners. So you make a full wooden box, hide the runners kind of underneath it. And man, so impressed with them. I don't know why I haven't used them before, to be honest, but they work so nicely and they're so easy to make. So
have they got sorry but do they have like just as much adjustment as the standard side mount, the runners? So
they have adjustment height wise but no sideways,
right
adjustment.
So you have to have that pretty
I'm using king slide runners, and the height adjustment is a little bit cheap, but it works fine. It's a very simple mechanism, but it gives you a 3 or almost 4 mil of movement. So you can kind of set it halfway and then put your drawer front on, and then you've got up and down movement. So I thought, and it's actually a very smooth, quiet movement. It's much better than much quieter, I think, than like your standard kind of soft close kitchen drawer type thing. I thought it was interesting. The client actually came in and had a look at the rest of his kitchen, and he said, I said to him, "Oh, tomorrow we'll get on to making your bench tops." And he kind of looked around. And he's like, "Where are they?" And I said, "Oh, the stack of timber, rough sawn timber here, we're going to turn into your bench tops." And he was like, "Oh, so you've got to like glue them together or something?" And I was like, yeah, we glue them together and make a big wide panel, and that's your bench top. And he's like, "Okay, sweet." But I thought it was very interesting kind of insight into how much some clients do not know at all about what we do.
Yeah.
And maybe we shouldn't take for granted, I suppose. Sometimes what people have no idea about what the process is. And so sometimes the more we educate them during whatever the process we happen to be doing, they might understand why some things cost what they do. You can't just go and buy a bench top off the shelf, and it doesn't work that way, Well, it does if you don't want
custom.
If you want custom, you want something nice. So I thought that was pretty interesting. You'll remember, speaking of the altar video, the client just emailed me and ordered a dining table, and so I'm actually going to pick up the timber for that this week because he wants it in a hurry, as seems to be the norm. But he actually, so I usually put my brand on my furniture, and it's a 5-pointed star. Some people call me out on being a Satan worshipper or something, like a pentagram.
Well, you are a punk guy, aren't you?
That's right. But I figured in this case I wouldn't put it on the altar, given that they were so finicky about measurements and numbers, and probably not the best thing to go and put a 5-pointed star on their altar.
Absolutely.
But he emailed me and said, "How come you didn't put your brand on your furniture? We keep trying to show it off, but we can't show it off. We can't show like the maker of it. So I've got to make some badges up and put them on the pieces. So I'm actually going to get some steel, like crap steel, little kind of logo badges that I can glue on to all my pieces. So I've just been talking to a company about getting those kind of cast little oval badges things. So that'll be a bit of fun.
Yeah, I've looked at something similar to that. So I get like an anodized plate, so I can do it on the laser.
Oh,
so
cool.
I do the negative on the laser, I think. So I have my logo
is the high point.
Yeah. And that I did that once so far, and I'm going to do way more of it because it's cool. It looks good too.
Yeah, that's cool that you can do your own too, and like kind of custom sizes if you need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even names and dates. That would be
That's right. Or serial numbers if it's part of the range and all that sort of stuff.
I like the idea of being able to do the date. I usually just hand write the date and put my signature on it.
Yep.
As well. But yeah, I like that date engraved in the steel. That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
One of the local guys here in Townsville, Scott Turner, he just released a video, and someone here locally makes those steel. I think it's steel. And he basically got a sheet of these that he can then either epoxy or nail or whatever to his pieces. Yeah. And I think it's brilliant. I'm actually going to contact this guy about seeing if I can get some. Because I think I've been handwriting on mine as well. But I just think it looks...
I think it brings it to a new level, right? When it's actually something that's kind of crafted in itself.
Or like stamped or burnt or something. Yeah, it's just so much cooler when you do that.
Yeah, my ones are going to be fly casted. So they use like muck metal, crappy, just whatever metal. And then he's going to electroplate them to be like antique copper.
Oh, nice.
And they put a little pin on the back, which they need to hold the thing where they electroplate it. And then he said most people just drill a small hole and put the pin into the timber, put a bit of super glue, and that's it.
That's cool.
And they're like $2.50 each, which is not crazy cheap, but it's not crazy expensive either. So,
and the value, the perceived value that it adds on a $2,000 whatever, probably worth it, I'd say.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get a bunch of them made. So that'll be fun.
Cool.
And that's about it.
Fun.
No luck on the Reddit side of things, unfortunately. I'm not logged in down here, so I can't find it. But what I'll do is I'll either have it ready for next show, or I'll put the link to it in Reddit in the description below. So take a look.
Vote me, people.
I've got this horrible feeling, Jordan, that I think it might have been removed.
So that's hilarious.
Wouldn't that
be? So do you think then it's because like companies get removed because it's like looks like it's a business trying to promote itself?
So when they talk about the self-promotion, normally it's a case of, as Jordan says, here, buy this. Right. Also, guys can get a little bit annoyed if you are constantly promoting and you're not like commenting or on anyone else's stuff. If it's just all one way, then, which I think is fair, then you get kicked as well.
Sure.
So yeah. But yeah, I'll get those links up as soon as I can, and you can all take a look. So in my world, I have last week I finished. I set up a bit of a drainage pipe solution to the flooding that occurred a couple of weeks ago here after that heavy rain in Townsville. So it's just basically a gentle grade from that low point in my yard into a bit of a soaking pit down the bottom of the yard. So that's taken care of. Just waiting on the next big rain to be able to figure out if it actually has worked or not.
Yeah.
It's impossible to tell until then. But there were some really cool comments on the video of it. So thank you to everyone that, I'll keep that all in mind if it does fail.
I saw your video pop up answering the questions, but the video itself never popped up on my feed. So I was kind of like, what video, what questions, what answers, what are you talking about?
I'll tell you what, I'm not going to be one of those people who thinks that YouTube is out to get me, because I realize that we're all players in the same game. But like, just the number of people that watch my video versus the number of people who are subscribed makes me question if anyone sees my videos anymore these days, because it just the views trickle in and it just doesn't make sense. I don't know.
I felt the same on my old main channel. That's why I just said fuck. stuff it. So that's why I said stuff it and started a new channel with just what I want people to see.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, this is still enjoyable. So it's, it's not like I'm waiting on those views to pay my bills. But at the end of the day, yeah, it can be a bit frustrating. But anyway.
Carry on.
So yeah, before we get into that entire topic. So behind me, some of you can see is it's sort of it's a mixture of things. It's a bassinet that is going to double as a co-sleeper, which is what the baby sleeps in to sit. It basically sleeps in right next to the bed. You can fold the one side down, and then it's, my wife will have access to it during the night. And then it's also going to be on wheels, and it can rock. So we can basically use it as we can push the baby around it, and it can rock. So that's been on the go for the last 2 weeks, and it's going really well. But because of all those things that I just mentioned, all those different parts, it's been really complicated. And everything is like, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about SketchUp. I would not have been able to do this if I didn't have SketchUp, to go back to. But yeah, slowly working on that. I've done the bassinet side of it is taken care of. Now it's just the cradle for it to sit in and rotate in.
How's it going to rock? Are you going to hang it like on 2 pins at each end?
Yeah, so there's 2 25mm dowels in the bassinet on either end on the top side. And then the legs, I decided so that bassinet's all Meranti. And we got an email from someone over the course of last week who was a bit concerned about the fact that I was making something for my child out of Meranti, because Meranti is not a particularly solid wood. I originally got this Meranti to build a full-size cot out of, and that was one of the reasons why I decided to switch from the cot to the bassinet, which is a lot smaller, because I didn't realize just how soft and not unstable, but like just how, it's not
super.
It's not the strongest wood that I've ever worked with. And I wish you guys had called me out on this before I went on and bought all the wood, because it's like, it's not as bad as balsa wood, but it's getting pretty close to it. And
we can't get it in solid form here. They only use it as face veneer for plywood.
Maybe the Meranti I've dealt with, I mean, it's not super hard. It's harder than pine, probably about the same as Tassie Oak or Vic Ash.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's the same stuff, but it's pretty dense over here. Over home way.
Yeah, well, this is the stuff from Bunnings, the hardware store. So that could be why. But I'd say this is probably softer than pine. It's been amazing, because you can just, any imperfections, you just one pass of the orbital sander and it's gone.
Yeah.
Which has been pretty cool. But yeah, so I don't.
Joinery in.
What's that?
Difficult to cut joinery and then.
Luckily, because the fibers are quite short, it's actually not. It's not too bad. So while it is soft, you can still. They're okay. It's not great. But yeah. So anyway, so what I did is I made the bassinet out of the Meranti, because that's now quite a bit smaller than the cot, which is quite nice. So obviously, as you size it down, it becomes more and more, I don't know what you'd call that, like it's not taking as much of its own weight anymore. The ratio. So that's fine. But I decided to do the cradle that it's going to sit in and rock on. That's all going to be out of Tassie Oak, because I wouldn't want the legs to be made out of Meranti.
Next question, just from a purely practical standpoint, is the rocking motion going to be lockable?
Yes. So what I've done, I thought of that. Where on the base, so is it the fulcrum, the pivoting point is at the top?
I guess it would be, yeah.
And then at the bottom, I'm going to just use a dowel. I think it's a 9.5, which will go through the legs, through the bassinet, and out the other side of the leg, and that should be enough. I mean, if you were to push it, it would.
There's plenty. Yeah.
But that should be enough. I don't think it's going to be a problem. And so it's got to be able to lock, because then at night, when the side gets folded down, it's got to be pushed up against the bed, and you can't have it move. And then the wheels have got to be lockable as well, and it's got to be pretty close.
So this is just another practical question. Do you think you could lock it or unlock it one-handed in the dark?
So that was something that my wife said, I've got to be able to do all of this one-handed. And I said, no, you don't, because you can put the baby in and then deal with it. Or, you know what I mean? Or there's never going to be a reason that you need to be fiddling with it.
Well, I bet that conversation went well.
Remember, we're both new parents, so neither one can say this is how it's going to be. It's just that point can't be made.
Good.
But you can put the baby in, and then you can do what you want, and then you can change it, and then you can take the baby out. So there's no need to be doing it one-handed, unless you want to complicate your life. But it should be fine.
Right.
It should be fine.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But it should be done in a week or two's time, and then we'll watch the comments roll in, and we'll see what I've missed.
Seriously, no one knows. No one can tell you what it's going to be like, and no one knows because it's different for everyone. So it may be sweet. It might not be. It sounds like it'll probably be sweet, but.
Well, one of the other reasons why I switched from building the cot to this suddenly was because we had that moment where we were like, hang on, we don't need a cot right at the beginning. You only need a cot in like 6 months. I need to go make something else. There's no point making the cot. And I ran off and started designing something, the bassinet, which is more important. So
quick, go get a pallet and throw a mattress on it.
So that's the sort of the knowledge that we have at this level. So it's all going to be learning curve.
Cool.
Fun times.
All right. So Jordan, how about you? You've obviously not been in the shop.
No. Okay. So let's do a quick tour update, but I have got some woodworking updates too. So on Monday we were in Canberra still, right? Last week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So since then I have just gone all over the country. Well, as in New South Wales. So I've been from Canberra. I went to Young to Mittagong, and then I had like a lovely 10-hour drive to Grafton and Byron. This is all in a week, by the way. And I've also been to Warwick, and last night I was in Narrabri. But the last 2 days I have been, our entire company has been without a lighting designer and operator. So I've been playing lighting designer and operator on top of my job. So I may look deep, and that's because I've just been putting in way too much effort to this bloody puppet show of mine. But
you're getting special overtime?
Yeah, not quite. But something cool happened last night, and I hope he listens in. But last night at Narrabri, I went out to a foyer to get a coffee right before the show, and I heard come up behind me, Jordan. I turned around, was like, yeah, thinking it might have been a staff member, and it was actually one of my followers and patrons, Malcolm Lewis.
Oh, cool.
He came to see the show, and we actually bumped into each other. And I was in show mode, so I do apologize if I came across as a little bit flustered, but
like a rock star.
Yeah, but it was kind of cool to meet someone genuinely in the public forum that recognized me.
Awesome.
So it was Malcolm Lewis.
Yeah, Malcolm Lewis.
Malcolm Lewis, this is officially your shout out on the podcast.
That's it. But yeah, so today I drove from Narrabri to wherever I am today, Taree, which is about 8 hours as well. So that was a long drive in a truck through mountains. But yeah, it's been good. But yeah, woodworking update. I have scored a job, and I'm just waiting on the deposit to come through for 2 matching tables. So they're both, I think they're both 10-seaters, so 3.2 meters long by 900 mil wide.
Nice.
This is for a business I've worked for once before, who are pretty good to work with, so I have no worries. But the design, I'm thinking of making the tables have breadboard ends, which tie into what we were talking about pre-show.
Yeah.
And I didn't really give it a second thought until we started talking pre-show about your table there, Rob, and having the slight movement. And now I'm thinking I might have to rethink the breadboard end, because they may not understand that the tables are going to move and there might be a gap. So,
well, not a gap, but
a ridge sort of thing.
A little ridge, yeah.
So, I mean,
what if you just throwing an idea out? What if you were to design almost like a green and green style?
So have a
slight quirk on the breadboard end, and chamfer around it. And then you're not going to notice any 3-4 mil of movement.
Yeah, that could be cool. Something else could be like along the same lines. If I did a chamfer on both, like all 4 mating edges on both the breadboard and the tabletop itself, at least that would give it a bit of a reveal. Except
put like a V in there or something.
Yeah, just really shallow, because otherwise it would be a crumb trap, but it could work well.
Is 900 millimeters the standard for a dining table? Because that just seems really narrow for a 3 meter long.
It's narrow for a 3 meter long, but the issue is the room. They're wanting to seat 20 people into a fairly small room.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So what I'm doing, 900 is a standard width, but not if you're wanting to have like people on the end necessarily. So the design is to have 5 people along the long lengths and no one on the ends.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So
then it would, okay, fair enough.
It's not so bad. And it's just a really simple design. I'm getting on my wood night with using some Vic Ash or Tassie Oak on it, which is nice, fairly pale and still hard-wearing timber.
And you can get, say, 3 meter lengths, 3.1s, or you're going to have to join somewhere.
I should be able to get 3.4 meter lengths reliably through my main supplier. I haven't actually contacted them since having this job confirmed to make sure that they can get that for me, but it shouldn't be an issue. But if I do, it'll just, with any luck, I'll be able to get the outside lengths to be solid pieces, and then I just do a few, finger joint butts. What do you call that? It's finger joint, isn't it?
Finger joint, yeah.
Yeah, long grain, end grain, 10 grain. Yeah. But yeah, it should be pretty good.
So would you do a finger joint, or would you just, because the finger joint's gonna be pretty noticeable, wouldn't you just want to do a butt joint instead? Because it's not like it's going to separate.
I mean, yes and no. The finger joint will just give it a lot of, instead of just end grain to end grain glue, it will give it actually long grain to long grain in that butt joint.
The boards on either side of it are going to stop it.
Yeah, it should keep it exactly right. So,
but you could do a sweet dovetail in them, and that would look pretty cool.
Yeah.
You could do just a classic like dovetail from one to the other, and it would look better than a finger joint.
Yeah,
or you could put
probably easier to tune it as well, and getting that bloody finger joint bit.
It's quicker. Way quicker. And then you could actually link the two boards together. You could almost glue the two boards together and treat them as a single board when you're jointing them.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a pretty good idea. I mean, it depends on what stock I have, but yeah, I might do something along those lines.
Is he set on Tassie Oak, or is there no real?
This is a big business, it's not a business so much. It's a big organization. So I'm dealing with one person who's dealing with 6 other people, and it's also a Lottery West funded project. So they're not just dealing directly with their internal guys, they're also dealing with Lottery West grants and all that. So while this is a very easy job to quote, because it's 2 matching tables and we got it all done, it's taking 4 to 5 days for an email to get responded to. So, I mean, I'm not in a rush by any means. I'm not even in the state, and they're not in a rush. So it's not an issue, but it is a lot of back and forth. So I've suggested Vic Ash just for a price point and durability, because it is a common room where you're going to have 20 people coming in and out for 3 meals a day. You don't want anything too flash, but you also don't want anything too cheap that will just dent and mark like pine wood or Oregon or something.
And isn't it, I assume Tassie Oak's quite available as well. With a lot of the other timbers, the more higher end are going to be harder to get in those lengths. Yeah,
definitely. So, I mean, I could, in theory, I could actually give them a really nice clean marry, because I can get that by the pack off the farm, and it's air dried, so it can be questionable, but generally speaking, what I've seen come out of those packs has been really good. The only problem with that is I would have to buy that a cube at a time, and I don't need a cube. So it's like, do I want to stock up on some wood and not have so much profit from the project, but give them a really special piece, or do I just want to have something which is quoted for and is going to be really nice anyway, and not be hard to, let's say, repair if it's needed? Or
Tassie Oak, I quite like. We can actually, thinking about it, we can actually get most Tassie Oak here. It's like 4.2 long.
Yeah.
150 by 40, and quarter sawn. Almost all of it's quarter sawn.
That's the other beautiful thing about the Tassie Oak or the Vic Ash that I get. I'd say in the packs that I'm selecting out of, probably 80% of it is mostly quarter sawn in those plants.
That's really good.
Yeah, so it should be a very stable table as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, tonight's topic, this was my idea, and it's to do with the shop layout. So how we lay out our shop to improve our processes. So I've seen a lot of videos where people make sure that the timber comes in one door, and the first machine is something to do with milling, and then they work their way around like that, which I think is a really interesting idea. Can't see it ever working in practice for me personally. So, John, I want to start with you because I know that you recently shifted your workshop around quite drastically.
Yeah.
When you did that, was there anything in mind with the way you were going to be moving the timber around, or was it just a case of wherever the space worked best?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both for the reason I changed. So ideally, and this isn't me saying I don't have enough space and not being ungrateful, but ideally I would have an extra 3 meters of width in the workshop, just because I've got, the mezzanine and the spray room and the office takes up almost half the width of my workshop. So I have to be kind of smart about my layout. So a lot of it was for necessity, is to give me the maximum amount of room in the center of the shop so I can have tables on rolling casters, which just allows me to move heavy tabletops in and out of machines. So I work mostly in tables, so I have to have quite a big turning circle around me and every machine. So what I would say is it depends on the work that you're doing on how you should lay it out. So if you're doing mostly small projects, you can probably have most of your machines and workbenches pretty close together because you don't need that much space around it, and you can just carry whatever you're working on to the next workstation. But for my reorganization, it's kind of laid out in, there's my timber, and right in front of my timber is my jointer and miter saw, because the first operation I'll generally do is cut the wood down to length, oversized of course, but down to length, and then joint 2 faces. Yeah. So that's right there at the front of the shop near all the timber. From there, it's on a mobile cart, and I'll take it over to either the thicknesser or the workbench to do laying out. So I just wheel it up to the next workstation. And then this is where the big compromise comes in my workshop, is I've got between the thicknesser and the wide belt sander, I've got a lathe, I've got a router table, and I've also got a slot mortiser. Not one of those 3 tools are used within the next step.
Yeah.
For taking it from the thicknesser to the wide belt sander, but it's the only place I can put it, so that's where they are.
Well, yes, I guess that's a really important thing. So that's the only place you can put it. Would it make sense shuffling things around so that you could get the wide belt sander there, or does that not? Are your returns just diminishing at this stage?
There comes a point where you have to stop faffing around and moving stuff around and just start making stuff. And it's a really easy trap to fall into, because it's, I'm liking how this is working, but maybe if I budget 500 mil this way, it'll be enough. So the longest table I'll probably work in is about 3 meters. I mean, 3.2 is my next one, but let's just say 3 meters. So as long as I have 3 meters of feed in and lead and feed out on those 2 machines, which is the thicknesser and the wide drum sander, I should be right. So the way I've got that spaced is, I think I have it at 3.6 meters of clearance around those machines. And also width, my wide drum sander is a 900 mil wide machine. So the widest board that's going to go through there is 900 mil. So I have to make sure I have at least 1 meter minimum to the side of that machine, so I can actually bring that board out of the outfeed and bring it back to the infeed.
Yeah. So it's a weird thing. Like the bigger your machines get, not only is their footprint is bigger, but the space that you need goes up. That's interesting.
Yeah, and same thing with the sliding table saw. That thing, I would never go to a standard table saw again after having a nice sliding table, but I need 3 meters radius around that thing at all times because my sliding table is 2.5 meters minimum.
Yeah.
And also the sliding action of the table is 2.7 meters on my particular saw. So it's just a crazy amount of room you need around all these machines. So my layout is a total compromise, but it's the only way it can work with some sort of workflow being considered.
I noticed, Joey, in your shop, you've got your workbench where you do a lot of your hand planing on the side, right?
Yeah, it's on a wall, under a window.
It seems really popular today to have the benches in the middle. In the middle. Yeah. Is there a reason you've chosen that?
I think about this often. I could quite easily on some days drag out my table and get rid of my crappy assembly table, and I have my awesome bench right in the middle, and I can walk all the way around it. But then I guarantee within 10 minutes, if I did that, I'm going to start screwing shit down to it because I need to temporarily screw a block of wood onto a bench, and I don't want to do that to my bench. So I've made the conscious decision that bench I use it as a tool. That is where I do my joinery and finer work. So that's where hand tooling is done. And then I have it under the window so I get natural light. I can see what I'm doing. And that leaves my assembly table. I can throw glue on it. I can nail into it, do whatever I like. I can route into it. And eventually it's very close to needing rebuilt because it's about to fall apart.
It looks like you hardly use the thing anymore these days with the size of the projects that you're doing. I guess that's always wheeled out the way.
Yeah. Well, no, I have a small assembly table and a big one.
Okay. So right. I thought it was just that big one.
I've got a big one that's a full sheet size, 2.4 by 12, and that's kind of somewhat nailed to the ground, kind of. But what I was going to say actually about the whole workflow thing is, like the day I moved into my workshop, I just had this big empty space, and Jordan probably had the same problem. You're like, where do I dump the first thing? Like suddenly you've got your truckload of stuff ready to move all your stuff into your workshop, and you're like, oh crap, you've thought about it obviously, but where should I actually start putting boxes of stuff that aren't going to be in the way for a start? And unfortunately, generally they stay right where you drop them off for the next 3 years, and then you never touch them.
I always think that like a woodworker is kind of like a goldfish in that you will grow into the size of your workshop. Like if you're limited to a small room, then you won't get that much big stuff.
Yeah.
But if you have a massive space ahead of you that you can do heaps with, you will quickly grow into that by getting massive piles of junk.
What I've come to kind of realize, and I probably couldn't do it now because I'm used to my space, but I wish that I had have actually put more walls in. I think it's actually a big waste of space to have one open big room.
Yeah.
Because you have, like, especially in the corners, it's just, what am I going to put in the corner? Oh, okay, I put my lathe in the corner, but then I'm going to put my bandsaw in front of it because that's the only other place it can go. So now I can't get to my lathe.
Yeah.
If I had built a little, like a nook wall, a little wing wall, I could have put my lathe on that and use the other side of that wall for storage. And actually makes way better use of the space. Having corners and things to lean things against, I think is way more practical in a workshop, but it does require a crapload more thought because you're building permanent kind of structures.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to put, because us woodworkers have lots of small things. And you put lots of small things in a very big room. Even a double garage is fairly big. Where are you going to put all this stuff? And you tend to just spread it out.
Yeah.
And having specific locations for things, even if it's just this is where all my small hand tools go, no matter what, anything that's classed as a hand tool goes on the shelf. It kind of frees up a whole lot of workbench space.
I also quite like the idea of zones. So if you have the space, then you can have like, you've got your dust creating zones, so there's all your sanding machines and all that sort of stuff. And you have that in an actual entirely partitioned off space, then it keeps, I mean, this is how my uni's workshop was laid out. We had, that it's like used in cool rooms and walk-in freezers, that plastic sheeting. Which is like flaps. Like they just had
stuff
that
you see in tacky old restaurants that you probably shouldn't be eating in.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. But they just had that laid out from the roof down, and on one side of that was all of the machines. So we had the panel saw and the radial arm saw and the jointer and thicknesser and all that sort of stuff in that area. And then in another area was all the assembly benches and hand tools with clamps and all of that. And then another area was the finishing zone. And while it made the workflow a little bit harder to just quickly nip over and do this one docking cut, it certainly helps keep it more organized and much cleaner, because you're using your project cart for all your components. So you just wheel the entire thing in if you have to do one more cut.
I really like the idea of that, actually. Like you've made me think about putting like a little hallway down the side of my workshop and then just putting like 5 rooms in. And that's what I get to work in.
Like, I think if my workshop, like I said, was like 3 to 5 meters wider, I would totally implement something. Like, I'm not gaining any extra width. If it was shorter but wider, I could implement something like that quite easily.
I have actually thought about, and I did think about putting some bigger partitions and extra partitions. My workshop's cut in half, or just pretty much cut in half currently, so I've pretty much got 100 square meters in the front, 100 square meters in the back. I thought, maybe I should make extra rooms, but my very next thought is it's going to restrict the kind of projects. I feel like it will restrict what I can and can't fit in and out of the workshop.
Yeah, right.
I think zones work really well, like the best when you're doing multiple, like if you were just a chair manufacturer, you would absolutely have like pretty much a tool per room, and that would just keep, and you'd bring in 300 pieces of wood that go through the tool. You'd take the cart of pieces to the next room with the next tool set up. It's kind of more production.
Manufacturing,
Yeah. I don't think it really quite works when you're just, I'm doing a kitchen this week, next week a dining table. Like it needs such a different range of space requirements.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's where I think I say the birth of the mobile workbench, only because I remember back my dad and his dad, there was no such thing as a rolling workbench. That to me seems like a fairly new idea. I think that's one of the greatest things that you can do is make it mobile so you can move it around. I've got one mobile and one heavy duty bench that I use for hand tool stuff. And it's great when I'm using it for hand tools, but when I'm not, it's just a pain in the ass because it just sits there and I can't move the thing around. It's just in the way.
I couldn't agree with that more. Like I don't want to diss my Rubos because I like them a lot, but to me, my Rubo workbenches just take up space, but my mobile workbench and my assembly table, which is in the center of the room, are the only 2 surfaces I use, unless I'm specifically like chopping out a mortise. I'll take that to my solid Rubo workbench. But because they're static, to me, I don't use them hardly ever. The birth of the mobile workbench is amazing as far as getting the most out.
I'm going to go down your route, Joey, and put because I've got it in the center behind me, I'm going to put mine very soon against the wall just to get it out of the way. And then if I ever need to do work, the only reason why I've never done that is just because when you're on it, it's really nice to just be able to flip the work around with the space. But I think the reality is it's just in the way.
There's a few times where working against the wall isn't great, in that sometimes your piece doesn't quite fit onto your bench properly. And if only you had if you could pull the bench out 100 mil, that would be be good. But then it's just too hard. So that happens sometimes, but not a heck of a lot. I couldn't think of anything worse personally than putting my workbench on wheels. Like this would be the worst thing I could ever think of. But I've got a couple of more lightweight benches I can just drag around. One is on wheels and the other is my kit set one, which can just be dragged around. and my main assembly table is kind of fixed in place. And I will, when I rebuild it, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to fix it in place so I can do hand planing on it if I need to, like a tabletop. I can hand plane on it without it shooting around the room.
Because you can't do handwork on. You can get the biggest wheels, most heavy duty wheels, but it's just never going to work. Is it?
The locks aren't going to work. Yeah.
You gotta go the specific. They're like, I think they call them drop down casters.
Yeah.
So you're actually sitting on all four legs of the table, and then it kind of jacks it up a little bit onto the wheels. They're the only way to have a good solid workbench to work on.
Actually, speaking of that, my machines are on wheels like that. I mean, I keep my thickness and my drum sander are on wheels because they get in the way of my sliding table saw. So I'm always got to push two of them out of the way to use the table saw, but generally you don't use them at the same time anyway, so that's fine. I do find sometimes the sliding table saw just gets in the bloody way.
Yep.
But when you need to do a cut where it can hold your whole tabletop, like today, I trimmed my kitchen island top to size, and it just, you put the whole thing on it, trim 10 mil off it, bam, finished. Like, it was awesome.
Yeah. And having a guaranteed 90-degree cut every time, it's just like...
We were talking about table saws last week. So a lot of the cuts that I've been doing this time, I've basically got a very poor man's track saw, which is just two sheets of MDF on top of it. What's that?
I like that. I'd rather use that and make one than buy one, to be honest.
And don't get me wrong, like it does work, and it does work well. And I've seen a lot of people argue that the track saw will do away with your table saw in a lot of scenarios, but you've got to get it set up, you've got to clamp it in place, you've got to do all these things, where I can imagine with your table saw, you literally just throw it against the fence and it's ready to go. Like, that's it, which, man, it must be cool.
When you go into the next level up from what Joy and I have, where you start getting DRO, where you just say you want this fence to be 801 millimeters, and you program it, and the fence just moves by itself, and the blade just raises by itself, and
I can add that onto my saw.
Yeah,
taking all the fun out.
He almost sold it to me, but I was like, I just cannot afford that. But
I almost bought a Cassidy with it, but it's a Cassidy, so I went for the Italian.
But I think down the road, I think it's about $3,000 or something, and I can CNC all the rest of the saw.
I think the good one would be the blade tilt to have CNC control.
Yeah.
That would be the only one that I can see a massive benefit with, but also just the rip fence, just not having to, because remember with the panel saw, you have to walk around the tailing edge of your sliding table to get to the fence sometimes. And that adds a few hours to a day.
The hardship.
I know, right? I've got all these beautiful things, but I don't have DRO.
Yeah, I must say, personally, in regards to organizing the shop, I used to look at people who do entire YouTube videos of them in SketchUp working out how they were going to do their future shop.
Right. And
I used to look at that and think, oh man, I can't. Yeah, just get into the shop. But I totally get it now, because this workshop that I'm in, all my tools were on that side of the wall, and then the workshop were ready, and I just started wheeling one out at a time. And did it, and it's fine now, but it's required a lot of moving stuff around as I go. But yeah, this idea, and I think as well, because I'm not doing this every day, this idea of making a workshop that is specifically for the processing of the wood from start to finish is just, there's just no real net gain in it yet for me, because the pieces that I'm working with just aren't big enough to I would rather focus on my ability to walk around the shop and move in the shop than have make sure that my tools come in the right direction, or my wood comes in the right direction to my tools. It just,
there's that. It also comes to the point that Joy made earlier, is that if you're making one thing, it's really easy to plan out a workshop, because you know operation 1, it's going to be cutting the taper on the spindle, and then operation 2 is this, so you can easily have it on a piece of paper. But because we all make different things for every project we do, it is a lot harder as a hobbyist and a bespoke maker to have a layout.
Flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where compromise comes in.
Yeah. The other thing to do with this topic, I thought, was something I'm pretty bad at is just sticking with the crap setup I have and being too stubborn to change it. And eventually it'll get so bad that it'll be like, right, no work today. I'm going to smash apart this wall because it doesn't work. And we're just going to spend the day. And I've bought like 6 sheets of MDF and let's just put some boxes together. And now this actually works how I wanted it to 3 years ago when I moved in, you know?
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said for just biting the bullet. If something is annoying you in your workshop, like you're constantly having to, walk around something, it just always is annoying. We'll just shift that thing, cut a hole in the wall, make it bigger, like do what you need to do to get rid of that annoying thing. Because when you actually finish that job and you're just in your daily work and you don't have to walk around whatever it is that was in the way, you feel so much better, and it's just so much easier to actually do what you want to do without being pissed off about some situation that you just are too lazy to fix.
Workshop words, yeah.
I'd say one thing I would like to say is like us. So Joey and myself, we're doing this, and our intent is this is our business. We have to make a living off it. Robin, you're doing it more as a hobby, and a lot of the people that are watching this would be doing it as a hobby. And basically, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of us would actually get joy from rearranging our workshop. Yeah. Like our workshop is our little man den or our lady den, whatever you want to call it. So by tuning it and getting this next thing just right, like that to us is part of the hobby. I mean, I was terrible for it. But now that it is me trying to make a living out of it, I don't think like that at all. Now I think it's just annoying. This thing's in the wrong spot, but I can't do anything about it because I have to cut this bloody thing, blah, 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 blah. But when it isn't a high stress situation where you're trying to get something done on a timeline, it's quite fun to rearrange your workshop and get everything organized and looking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that it's not fun to rearrange your workshop when you should be working.
Yeah, exactly.
Project.
It's the ultimate not fun because you're just, it's like money, losing. Yeah. I'm losing money.
And it's like a 2-minute, I'll only take 2 minutes. I'll move this over here. And it's then 2 afternoons later and you still haven't got it repositioned because you didn't think about dust collection or something. That's when it becomes painful.
Yeah. So Leroy's just said, Lady Den sounds quite creepy.
Hey, I've been on the road a long time, guys. Come on.
All right.
Cool. All right, let's leave it there. That's a good show. All right. So what have we been watching? I'll start it off. There's a channel called Make It Extreme. They've been around for a while. They do very cool stuff.
Yeah, they're cool.
And they came out with a video this week, an electric rotary gun. And I just
saw that pop up.
and the reason why I'm mentioning this one is when they started, it was all these like really outrageous but simple projects. The more and more that you watch, like there's actually a lot of engineering that's going into what they're doing. Like, all the sort of the mechanical parts, the smaller pieces here and there. I'm enjoying it more now with these sort of sillier projects, just watching it go together, thinking, I don't know what this part's going to, I cannot even imagine what this part's going to do. And then, that's what it's for. Yeah. Anyway, so they put out this electric rotary gun. It's super cool. Super cool.
Awesome.
I think I found them a while ago when they made like a deck chair that had a pull-out, motorized roof that kind of came over as a canopy. It was so cool.
And it's all metal work as well.
Yeah, it's mostly metal. Yeah.
Which I find fascinating the way they just they work with metal like we work with wood.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
So cool.
I like metal. I mean, metal is cool. You can fill a gap with weld if.
How about you, Jay?
I was watching. Everyone probably knows about Matt Cremona. He just finished his Queen Anne Highboy, and last night I sat down and as he's released it as a 29 something minutes.
I was going to ask if you got through the
video.
whole thing.
And so what he's done is condensed, I think, 36 videos down into 29 minutes. And I thought I'll just skip through this and just see how it goes. I found that I watched every second of the whole video from start to finish. I didn't even realize it was half an hour had gone. He did such a good job on that thing. And while the video for YouTube is definitely not a tutorial, it's more of a walkthrough. And I was able to keep track of what he was doing. There's a few things that I was like, "Whoa, what did you do? What was that?" And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see some of those other videos on the guild. But
yes, so that was a Wood Whisperer guild project,
so
wasn't it?
Yeah, videos are for guild, and then he's just condensed it down
to a general,
short as he could. And I tell you, he did such a good job at editing that down and keeping it relevant. And so, yeah, really cool. Go watch that. That's an amazing piece of work.
Yeah, I got that one sitting on my watch list.
Yeah, I just haven't had the stones yet to get into it because it's just such a long video. And I don't know if I can sit down for half an hour and I'm going to lose interest. But maybe with what you're saying, it's not going to be that bad. That bent lamination that he did on the top, as much as we've seen bent lamination. It's not
bent lam.
Isn't it?
No, it's one piece carved. The scotia is carved, and the actual bun top is like a 5mm veneer that he just water bent.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Sorry. Why did I think it was bent lamination?
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole look, I would never even have thought that's a thing that you do to make the top look like that. Like to me, a top is generally a solid piece of timber. It's never this. Yeah, it's just such a cool look.
I've always been fascinated with that style, and for years I never knew what it was called, and I've played around with putting those kind of parapets on the top of pieces of furniture just to see what they look like, and to see it done. And I've done one recently. I did something like it, but nothing quite that scale. So yeah.
Gareth has just mentioned an interesting thing. I love Macromona, but I can't watch it because it's so ugly.
What do you mean by ugly? The piece?
I think I'm kind of with Gareth on this. I would not want that thing in my house because I just don't like that style.
Yeah, it's very. I guess it would be
beautiful, but it's just not my cup of tea.
Very American style. I think they really like the colonial stuff.
Yeah.
I probably would have it in my house. But I don't know where it would go.
I'd store like blankets in it, no worries.
Yeah, put my undies in it.
Yeah,
the special undies drawer. Just like those finials. To me, yeah, I don't know. I just
they. I mean, that every piece. It's the height of ornamentation for that period, and all around that period from later on, it gets progressively less and less decorative. So you could probably pick a piece from like 20 years later that was not so decorative, but
yeah. As Leroy says, it's definitely an acquired taste, but the craftsmanship is to be admired, and that's the thing. Like I think that's why all of us woodworkers can appreciate it. But yeah, I can't imagine.
I think that's why woodworkers hate him because of his skill.
So having watched it all, Joey, is the skill level up there? Because the way I find Macromona's videos come across is he's just doing it. It's just easy. Just put it in and just do it. It never comes across like he's a skilled craftsman.
How do I say this? I feel like
he's got the patience for it.
I don't want to say this.
Well, now you have to say it.
Yeah, I feel like he works like I work. I feel like I could do that if I set myself 6 months aside to do it. And I could probably do it almost in the same way that he did it. I'm not as skilled as him in a few things. Not good on the lathe. He says he's not good, but he's pretty good. And he's got a lot more patience than me, I think. But I feel like you could just work through the steps. I think a lot of people see a big project like that and just see this gigantic thing. And I just see you make the legs, then you make the case sides, and then you set that aside, and then you make the sides for the next part. Like I just see it as a series of small jobs.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't freak me out at all from the scale of it. It's just go through the process. And I think that's just what he does as well.
I think, yeah, I agree with you. Like, for me, the biggest thing that I think he is ahead of me on is that he's got the patience to tackle a project like that. Like, I wouldn't be able to set aside 3 to 5 months to do a project like that and still be into it, whereas he does. So
yeah, it's the long game.
Yeah,
a lot of us would just lose interest. Oh, I think about this bassinet behind me that has far fewer parts, and the thinking ahead process. Obviously not. I haven't been doing this as long as you guys, but all the steps and making sure that the steps are done in the right order so that I don't screw myself over in the next step. Like on a project that big, it just seems insurmountable. But good on him. Good on him.
No,
It was a good piece.
I like a bit of Cremona in the morning.
A bit of Cremona in my coffee.
There you go. And he does like coffee. Is it me? It must be me.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm gonna say straight off the bat, it's not their best video, but it's the one I watched today. Was Physics Anonymous, who are once again, I think I might have mentioned them once before, but they just do some machining stuff and CNC sort of stuff. Their latest video is just a new machine they got, but it's kind of cool.
I watched it. You sent through the link, and I watched the whole thing.
Yeah,
and it was watchable. It was pretty cool, and I really didn't know what I was watching, but it was entertaining, and I learned a few things. And
that's the thing. All of their videos are entertaining. Like, they do a solar eclipse video, and it's like, I don't really give a crap about this, but I've watched the entire video. So, yeah. But yeah, that's my video. I did forget to send through a link, which is for This Old Tony. So I do apologize, but I've watched all of his videos that he's put out in the last fortnight this week, which is really cool. He's a metal worker, machinist, and very entertaining, and a lot of small little quirks throughout his videos. So if you like machining and metalwork, check out This Old Tony as well.
This Old Tony. Cool. All right. Well, what I just want to do is another quick plug about the Maker meetup. There's a link in the video description to the new event, the one that's not set to private. So anyone's welcome. You can bring your friends and family and dog. Either way is cool. So obviously we want to see as many of you guys down there as possible. At this stage, it's looking like we're going to be meeting in Brisbane just to make life easier.
Cool.
And Dirk, who's actually in the chat, asked me about putting together just a list of like accommodation or what we can do while we're there. So I will get onto that probably closer to the time. At this stage, the main thing we're looking for is just an expression of interest. Who would be keen to come along? So we'll leave it at Brisbane because it's central. It's closer than central-ish, especially coming from New Zealand. So it's going to be the closest capital city to the expo. So make it easier. So yeah,
South Bank or somewhere like that, eh? Maybe we'll figure it out closer.
Yeah, we'll work it out then. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks everyone in the chat as always. Had some pretty funny comments there. And thanks for watching if you are watching this on YouTube, and thanks for listening if you're listening to this on iTunes. Next week we're going to be Monday night again, and then after that we are back to Thursday night. So we look forward to that. Cool. All right, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Yeah.